that da that da ba 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 that da Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Swagat to episode 5 of the podcast. We made it to 5 episodes. Last, we started with episode 1 1 month ago. Now we are here, August 10th, ladies and gentlemen, for this 5th episode of the podcast, where we will discuss mainly why the championship, which is the second division, England Dostro division, the SkyBet Championship, is really an interesting league this season. It's also one of the most watched leagues in the world. Apparently second division हुन्छ नि एउटा कुनै कन्ट्रीको मान्छेले हेर्दैन तर championship चाहिँ अलि युनिकै छ. Next, and then we talk about some topics regarding football in terms of injury and how heading is related with brain injury as well as heart risks in football. And then we talk about the new season of the Premier League, which is beginning, I think, in 1 hour and 30 minutes. By the time you're hearing this podcast, I think it would have finished. Manchester United versus Leicester City today. तपाईँले यो पोडकास्ट सुन्नुभएको छ भने यसको रिजल्ट आइसक्छ. सो you have to adjust, and then if you might listen later, we might have already been finished by the first week of the Premier League. Yo hafta football season is back, and with me, that is Bake. Episode 5 of this podcast will be about the new season and how it is going to go. And well, football season has started. सुरु भएको छ football season. European football and football fans are excited as well as me. म पनि एकदम एक्साइटेड छु. नयाँ सिजन आउने बित्तिकै अलिकति नयाँ हुन्छ नि, उत्साह हुन्छ. जब इन्टरनेसनल ब्रेक आउँछ बिचमा, तब अलिकति किन खल्लो हुन्छ कि हप्तामा केही पनि गर्नु हुँदैन हैन. फुटबल हेरिन्छ जेनरली, एन्ड मिड विक च्याम्पियन्स लिग or युरोपियन फुटबल, anything like that. But now pre-season चाहिँ अलिकति हुन्छ नि, हेरिन्छ न हेरिदैन. I don't take it as much seriously, but I do watch it, but I don't take it as serious. But clubs do take it seriously. Our fans, it is your perspective, it is subjective, fans' perspective. But the real season starts tomorrow, and also the transfer deadline day finished yesterday for English Premier League. Here is what happened. Before I get into the championship, England voted that the transfer deadline would finish yesterday. That is Thursday, which is 9th of August at 5 p.m. UK time. भनेको हाम्रो यहाँ probably 8:45 or 7:45, I think. I watched the last hour of the transfer window. Live streaming, don't tell anybody. हैन. अनि एकछिन मेरो साथीले मेसेज पठाएको छ. He's a United fan and he will join us in the podcast later on, and that's a surprise. So he's saying that he is really unhappy with Manchester United and their transfer spending, especially the last day of the transfer window, where they were linked with 5 players. Yeremina of Barcelona, Toby Alderweireld of Tottenham Hotspurs. Then they were linked also Jerome Boateng as well. Who's the other two? Diego Godin पनि थियो हैन, and Harry Maguire, of course. 5 players, they didn't get it. You expect Manchester United to sign big players, they did not. And now they go today against Leicester City, not having signed one of those players, and their target playing against them, which is Harry Maguire. Claude Puel made a joke that Harry is going to Manchester, but he's playing on a blue shirt. So it was a funny joke by Claude Puel. So now we start with the championship, the SkyBet Championship. Any fans might know this as the second division of English football. It used to be called the second division. Before 1992, football in England was based on divisions. The Premier League was the first division, second division, third division. League structure, relegation and promotion structure थियो, and the bottom 3 drops down to Division 2. Meanwhile, the top 3 of the second division goes up to Division 1. And the championship, let's see, it's called the SkyBet Championship. I think Sky have sponsored the championship, and normally Premier League is watched around the world. Like Premier League starts Premier League. United are boring, says my friend. Why SkyBet Championship. Last season, Wolves won the championship, and whoever wins the championship gets automatic promotion. Second place teams get automatically promoted, and then first two positions. Just the Wolves first bowl, Cardiff second bowl, and they are automatically promoted to the Premier League. Now the third team, they play a playoff. Third, so you need to finish either third, fourth, fifth, and sixth to qualify for the playoffs. And you play a two-legged playoff and a final, and the winner of the first playoff will play against the winner of the second playoff in a final at Wembley. And Fulham won the final, beating Aston Villa 1-0. And they are the third team in the Premier League this season. So Fulham is back, Wolves are back, Cardiff City is also back. It is going to be exciting. Yes, the EFL, the English Football League. It's a football league. This is tried with the FA. I think the Football League, which is the Championship, League 1, League 2. They also have the Conference, and then the Vanarama League South is the Conference again. And English football's the structure is really, really top down. Just this structure, right? Now talking about the SkyBet Championship, highest division of English football. It was also called the N-Power Championship at one point. N-Power Championship, they had that logo of the football. Coca-Cola Championship, Coca-Cola Championship, I remember it. And then it became N-Power. It's sponsored by N-Power, and they had that football logo which used to come across, and they had a crown in the top of the football. And people watch, and England's championship is big because it is based on stock location based on this season especially the championship is really interesting. So last year in the Premier League, West Brom got relegated despite the last half of the season. Second half of the season they got the new manager Darren Moore, beast physically or Darren Moore, and he got some good results. He beat, I think, Manchester United Old Trafford, or get a draw. Okay, but he did some. He got good results, but still they finished bottom. And then Swansea were relegated, and also Stoke were relegated. And so Stoke City who had been in the Premier League for nearly 10 years. Then you had Swansea, who had maintained the status. League Cups that under Michael Laudrup, they went under transformation. And they had some pretty good players. And then West Brom, which stayed there. Actually, after 2010-11, Matthew relegated one Firi Ayo, and they had good players like Odo Mungi, Chris Brunt, also. And then Rondon 2 seasons ago was doing well, but now they got relegated. So these three teams are well watched in the Premier League, and fans will be used to these teams. And some people who follow these teams now will watch the Championship. Now, Championship, there are 24 teams in the Championship. There are 23 clubs from England and 1 from Wales. And this season, there are two or three aspects of the Championship. First, I want to talk about is the manager of Derby County is Frank Lampard. The Chelsea legend, top scorer in Chelsea history, I think, is a manager of Derby County without having any past managerial experience. And his first game was against Reading at the Majeski Stadium in Reading. And Reading is managed by Paul Clement, who is a former Swansea City coach and is also a former first-team coach at Chelsea. So when Lampard was playing at Chelsea at one point of his career, Paul Clement was the manager. So there is history एकदम मलाई यस्तो कुरा चाहिँ एकदम interesting लाग्छ के, because there is always history related to that player or a coach. That player is either a former teammate of somebody, either a former colleague, or a former he used to be the coach and the player used to play in that club. Small links and connections. And Paul Clement's a Reading manager. Now my friend is saying United are boring again. On the ball they look clueless. Also, Lampard was appointed manager of Derby, and Derby County were in the Premier League 2006 and 2007. 6-7 season, they had the worst season. I think they won only one game. And worst season. So they signed Robbie Savage. Worst season. They finished at the bottom. They got relegated, and they haven't been back since. But I think for the last 3 or 4 seasons, they're pushing for that playoff. And the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, they're pushing for that playoff. And they are getting there. They had a good player, Tom Ince still. Derby, he got sold to Huddersfield, and Huddersfield has sold him back to Stoke now. They're playing the Championship. And then, so this game against Reading was really interesting because he won. Lampard won his first game as manager, and when Frank Lampard Frank Lampard as a manager in Derby will attract eyes because he's a very good player. In his prime, Frank Lampard was scoring 20-25 goals a season. For a midfielder, he used to make those late runs and score the goals outside the area. His finishing from that edge of the box is very good. And then he's a very good team player as well. He contributed to Chelsea's first ever league title after 50 years. And then he scored that winning goal against Bolton that won us the league. Chelsea the league. And then so Chelsea fans will watch towards Derby to see how Lampard gives his philosophy. कस्तो छ ल्याम्पार्डको philosophy हुन्छ नि. How does Derby play? Do they play हुन्छ नि राम्रो फुटबल खेल्छन् हुन्छ नि टुकु टुकु टिकी टाका हुन्छ नि पास खेल्छन् कि लङ बल खेल्छन् कि कस्तो खेल्छन् काउन्टर अट्याकमा खेल्छन् कि फेसमा खेल्छन् कि त्यस्तो खालको. सो चेल्सी फ्यानहरूले हेर्छन् हुन्छ नि डार्बी काउन्टीको गेम कस्तो छ. अनि चेल्सी फर जुन फ्यानहरू छ भेरियस पेजेस इन सोसियल मिडिया दे विल फलो ल्याम्पार्ड, दे विल पोस्ट हिम कस्तो भइरहेछ के भइरहेछ यस्तो छ है. आई वाच्ड डार्बी yesterday, they were like this, and what happened on that day was they beat Reading as already mentioned 2-1, a late goal in that game. I think they were losing 1-0. Reading played really well in the first half. I watched the highlights. They played really well in the first half. They had good players. Reading. I forgot key baat yaar. They had some good players. And championship ko so broadcasting rights they have in almost 30 countries, I want to say, broadcasting rights. They don't have India ma bhancha Sony 10. So our continent of Sony 10 has the rights. So see, second division हेर्नलाई पनि कस्तो छ के. United States is broadcasted in ESPN. Now Reading, let's see. They were once in the Premier League. So in Lampard side beat Reading 2-1. I think they were losing 1-0. They equalized 1-1, and a late goal from the midfielder. So I think it was Mason Bennett, one of the players, a hot prospect. He crossed the ball and it was a very good header. And Reading have some good players. Chelsea but दुई तीनवटा ल्याएछ. Mason Mount Leeds मा हो कि त्यसमा हो है or Derby मा. But Derby have some good players. They sold Vidra. I watched the game. कस्तो बिर्सेको. Reading को अहिलेको प्लेयर को थियो भिटो मनाउने थियो हैन. Who scored that goal? Leandro Bacuna पनि छ, former Aston Villa. John Swift, former Chelsea player. I think he's a Chelsea player. Or is he on loan? So he is related to Chelsea. They had Gareth McLeary, one of those wingers. Mo Barrow, former Swansea winger. Bodvarsson, he scored the goal at the Icelandic forward. उसले गोल हानेको थियो. He made it 1-0. That was really good. I think it was a good header. It was a good cross from Barrow from that I think right hand side, and then the goal from Bodvarsson. Yes, I think Bodvarsson scored in 52 minutes. And Mason Mount scored, and then it was Tom Lawrence, for the Wales striker. He was signed from Leicester City. He was a member of Leicester City, and then he signed in Derby, and he scored a brilliant flick header. Bennett cross was coming with pace, and he was right on the penalty area. So penalty area ko त्यो the U ठ्याक्कै penalty box बाहिरको जुन U छ नि त्यसको अलिकति भित्रबाट glancing header like in the top corner मा हानेर. Vito Manone didn't have a good game. He was supposed to save, I think, Mason Mount's effort, but his first win for Lampard in very, very, let's say, emotional circumstances for him, because their team came from behind to win away at Reading, who played really well in the first half, by the way. I already mentioned it. And it was really good to see Lampard celebrate. He also had Shea Given in his corner. The Manchester City former goalkeeper, Newcastle United goalkeeper, legend at Newcastle, been there for a long time, then went to City, and he was there at the coaching staff. So यस्तो खालको प्लेयर हुन्छ नि जुन मेरो टाइम वा तपाईहरुले फुटबल हेर्नुहुन्थ्यो तपाईहरुको टाइममा जुन प्लेयर थियो. Now they have started becoming a coach, and then it's the next. So our generation has moved on to become coaches. That's how time passes us by. It was just yesterday जस्तो लाग्छ. हिजो भर्खर I watched Shea Given at Newcastle United when they had Kevin Keegan as their manager. They were playing with Viduka, Martins, and Michael Owen, and they were doing good. Then they got relegated. I remember him moving to City that first season. I think it was Mark Hughes किनेको थियो हुन्छ नि. He was when the Arab money came in, then it started. So Given was one of their signings, one of the part of the project in the beginning before Joe Hart displaced him. And he was, and those players, the Lampard, हाम्रो generation is a manager now. Steven Gerrard is a manager at Glasgow Rangers. He's doing a pretty good job. Patrick Vieira now manages Nice. So players like that, they started to become managers. Thierry Henry wants to become a manager. That's why he left Sky Sports. Gary Neville became a manager. So these players that are from that we saw, हामीले देखेको थियौँ तिनीहरूलाई आफ्नो हामी फुटबल हेर्दाखेरि, those were the players, the key players, the iconic players. Now they're becoming managers, and becoming a manager or a coach is a whole different ball game. And it's different than being a player. You are in control. All the blame will be on you when you win and on you when you lose. So it's the pressure. The pressure is too much. Pressure, I think, gets up a level from a player compared to manager, because manager is the one that the player doesn't get sacked. The player sacked, manager gets sacked. It's their job on the line, so they have to play with that pressure. So it's good to see players becoming managers that from our age, and good job from Derby County. And next up for Derby, I think this week they're playing. Let's see, Derby County. I think yes, they're playing Leeds United, and coming to Leeds United. This is my second topic of why you should watch the championship. First is Frank Lampard is the manager of Derby, and it's a very lame. If you think it's a lame point, but I think it's very interesting, because all these famous players, are now managing in the second division, and that's how they cut their tree. Joey Barton is the manager at Fleetwood Town. Joey Barton, the famous Joey Barton, gambling, he had a fight. Kanda machaउने player हो क्या Joey Barton भनेको चाहिँ, हैन? And he's a manager at Fleetwood. They lost their first game, but still, you want to watch these kind of players. Now, Derby play Leeds, and coming to Leeds is managed by Marcelo Bielsa. Marcelo Bielsa भनेको एउटा iconic character in football. Okay, I'm gonna talk about championship because the managers are key to watching the championship. There are very, very high quality managers now, and Marcelo Bielsa is a coup. COUP coup. You don't expect it, but you get it. He's a coup for Leeds United, and Leeds United is known as the sleeping giant of English football. It's the last sleeping giant because it used to be part of the first division back in the day. It was one of the greats in 60s or 70s. In that era when Don Revie was the manager, they won the league, they won the cup, they were in the final of the European Cup. And that rivalry with Brian Clough and how he became their manager. We'll discuss about this in further episodes, but there is a huge history on that. And currently Leeds, and they were in the mid-90s, late 90s, early 2000s, they were in the Premier League. They had invested a lot, the likes of Rio Ferdinand, Mark Viduka, Harry Kewell, Ian Hart, Lee Bowyer, player, Alan Smith. These players are all from Leeds United, and back in that day, I think they won the Premier League in 1990. Before it was a Premier League, they won that in 1992. Eric Cantona, they reached the semi-finals of the Champions League, and then they were relegated in 2004. They didn't have any money, and then they've been down. They've been down as League One. Now they're trying to get back to the Premier League, and recently, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, an Italian purchased Leeds United, not Vittorio Pozzo. And this Italian is also, and also when you're a collusion group ma Leeds United किनेको, and they went into some kind of financial trouble, embargo के लायो, and now it's owned by, I think, a different guy. I don't know, I think they're wealthy, and they're new management आएको छ यहाँ, and this time they were in search of finding a manager, and they contacted Marcelo Bielsa. I watched Marcelo Bielsa's Leeds United game against Stoke. Now Stoke are considered favorites to win the championship. Right? They are just relegated. They have some really good players. Jack Butland stayed, Ryan Shawcross. They have Darren Fletcher, Peter Crouch. They signed Benny Kafobe, who's very good at the championship level. And they have good players. They have Etebe, they have Ndiaye. All these players that have played in the Premier League. Eric Peters, Oliver Bauer. So these players are there in the Premier League. Have Premier League experience, they have played at a big level, so they are considered favorites. And Leeds with Marcelo Bielsa it was very interesting to watch how they would play, because Marcelo Bielsa would play in a certain way. He has a certain style of playing. Marcelo Bielsa is a former manager of Argentina. He coached them in 2002 World Cup. Very bad result. They were knocked out in the group stages, I think. He coached Chile at the 2010 World Cup, and where we saw the Chile of today is the foundation that Bielsa built in 2010. He played that high press, high intensity game where it was like you have to move. There is a famous quote that Joe Rogan uses when he's talking about fighting, and he uses Rickson Gracie's example. Rickson Gracie is one of the greatest jiu-jitsu fighters. Jiu-jitsu is a form of a martial arts, for those of you who don't know. And Rickson Gracie, and it's a kind of a grappling martial arts. You grapple, and so it's about submissions. You get into leg locks, foot locks, hand locks, and then arm locks. Get into that much about jiu-jitsu in our later episodes. We'll talk about it, but when Joe Rogan talked to Rickson Gracie, he talked about how Rickson Gracie would grapple, and Rickson Gracie would say he would go to from 0, he would go to 1, and from 1 he would go to 2. When you are in 1, you don't go back to 0, and I think that's how Marcelo Bielsa plays. He goes forward. It's that quick style of passing, and the passing is not like tiki taka. You get pass around. It's forward. It's intensity. It's high pressing. You need energy. Energy चाहिन्छ के त्यस्तो play खेल्नलाई. And then Bielsa was appointed manager of Leeds, and I watched that documentary on Sky Sports how they had chosen 3 or 4 managers, and Bielsa was one of them. And the Leeds chief executive contacted Bielsa, and you know what Bielsa said? Bielsa said, "Come to visit me in Argentina." It showed a sign of intent. Do they really want Bielsa? They went to Argentina. They wanted him because they wanted a guy to bring Leeds to its former glory. They thought Bielsa was the guy, and Bielsa is one of those guys that we need to see in English football. He's one of those rare managers. He has not won a lot. He's considered a god in his hometown, and I think it's Newell's Old Boys or Rosario. Marcelo Bielsa, I forgot. But he's considered El Loco. That means crazy, and because he is very astute in details. He's a man of details, isn't he? And he has a pretty very interesting history. He was a manager of Lazio for I think 4 days, and he resigned because he couldn't get the players he wanted, and so he resigned. He managed Marseille and did really well first season, and they played some good stuff. He was sacked in the second season. I think he quit. Newell's Old Boys, sorry, yes. He has also coached in Mexico, Club Atlas and Club America, then Vélez Sarsfield, and then Chile, and the Atletico Bilbao one was where he got mainstream attention in European football, because they played that kind of football. It was after Chile. They reached the Europa League final when they lost to I think Atletico Madrid and Radamel Falcao, and they reached the Spanish Cup final, and they beat Manchester United on their way at Old Trafford as well. And United fans gave Bielsa a round of applause, gave the Bilbao team a round of applause. That's how good this guy is. And he used to be a defender in his time. Now his coaching style is one. He plays, they say formation tactical things in 3-3-1-1, but this is what Tim Vickery says. This is how attention to detail Bielsa is. Let's see what Tim Vickery, the BBC, he's a BBC South American football correspondent, and he said when he took the Argentina job, this is back in 2002, at the end of his first training session, Bielsa handed the players a pencil and a little slip of paper. He wanted them to write down whether they wanted to line up with a back 3 or a 4. He went through all the replies, back 4, back 4, back 4, back 4, and I saw everybody said back 4. This clearly shows your preference for a line of 4, but I'm telling you that from now on we're going to be playing with the back 3. See you tomorrow. And he won them over, bringing them around to his way of thinking. So, it's that way of convincing you, and players want to play with you. I saw the documentary on Sky Sports where players were excited to play on the Bielsa. So this is a guy that players are excited to play in the new managers with new philosophies, because they get to learn about the game. Managers have a different, when you're playing the game, you have a different perspective. Watching the game, you have a different perspective. And as a fan, we also have a different perspective. So, and he played with 4-3-3 at Bilbao. At fullbacks pushing forward, midfielders coming back, and they were pressing all the way. It was amazing. And he has an influence on a lot of coaches currently, like Gerardo Martino, former Barcelona manager, Mauricio Pochettino, who actually helped Bielsa get a permit in the UK. When you're coming to the UK, you need to get a work permit. And in terms of football, Pochettino wrote a letter to the FA saying how instrumental Bielsa is in the world of football, and they accepted. Diego Simeone is also instrumental. Is also influenced, sorry, by Bielsa. And Mauricio Pellegrino, Southampton manager थियो पहिलाको, Jorge Sampaoli, the manager of Argentina and the manager of Sevilla before, he described her. These are all disciples of Bielsa. So these are all former players turned managers, but influenced by Marcelo Bielsa. And coming back to his Leeds perspective, he's a manager one of his kind. When I saw that game, all the game was keep a time when Bielsa sits cooler cooler America when Nepal cooler then the beer here or something you need to drink. So he sits there and he just watches with his specs, and he has 3 or 4 assistant managers and they do all the talking. एउटा आउँछ कराउँछ अर्को लेखिरहेको छ त्यहाँ अर्को प्लेयरसँग कुरा गरिरहेको छ अर्को फेरि असिस्टेन्टसँग गर्जागड गरिरहेको छ and they are the one moving around, and then Bielsa is just there sitting हुन्छ नि हेरिरहन्छ अनि पछाडि आउँछ अनि कुरा गर्छ फेरि अगाडि गएर बस्छ and के डिसिजन रङ भयो भने कराउँछ हैन त्यस्तो खालको very exciting to see. And they won that game 3-1. They beat Stoke 3-1. They played so well. कस्तो बवाल खेलेको थियो त्यो गेम. Leeds they pressed Stoke. They didn't give Stoke an inch. The first time completely dominated गरेको थियो के. They played with that guy. एउटा के थियो forward थियो अगाडि. He played really well. And then they had size. Your playmaker is size and khatra. What a technique. This guy is a technician and he's a very good playmaker. And that people running all around. Barry Douglas, their left back, had actually 17 assists, 18 assists last season. And he gave an assist on the I think it was the 3rd goal. They led 1-0 and then they went 2-0 up, and then Stoke brought the game back to 2-1, and then it became 3-1. Guy very attention to detail. His side was pressing, energetic. If somebody had the ball in midfield, one guy would go after it, and then if that Stoke player give the pass to another guy, then another player would be after it. They would press all around. And when they went forward, they were runners. Options was available. They missed a lot of chances. So many chances. Leeds missed. They played very well. You should watch Leeds play after that first game. And the other attention to detail, there was one article on the Guardian I read about Bielsa, and the article came on Bielsa is so attention to detail. When the Leeds management went to see him in Argentina and talk about championship, he had done all his study. He talked about Leeds, how they played last season, what was the tactics, then what was the name of the players, and then he gave a very astute, very detailed explanation of how the championship was the culture. And when he came to Leeds, he wanted to know the fans. Fans costo. It's Leeds. I think it's a working class. Football is always about the working class. I feel it's a working class sport. You want to represent your city. And Leeds as a city, you wanted to know how much the fans sacrifice to watch that game. How much do they work? Hard work the game here in life. And for this, he did his all research, and somehow he found out that 3 hours. It was 3, and then what he told the players was, he told the players to clean all the surroundings of the training ground for 3 hours, because that's how much the fans sacrifice to watch you guys play. He gets that emotional side, but that emotional side is also related. There is a logic behind it. Fans is what football is all about. You play for the fans, and you want to please the fans. There's nothing good that pleasing others, fans, especially fans. That statement might sound a little bit condescending. Pleasing others, fans, you play for them, you play for your city, and the city is represented by the people living in it. And Bielsa understood that, and he understood the working culture of the English football, and it's a very fan-centric. Though as low you go down in the championship, not the champion, football pyramid in England, it's to city, city costo khatra cha bhaneko एउटा थाहा हुन्छ के. And he understood that, and he made the players work for 3 hours, and that shows you something different from managers. And then his assistant managers do all the work, and his relationship with the media is really crazy. कस्तो अचम्मको छ उसको रिलेसनसिप विथ द मिडिया. He doesn't talk too much with the media. I saw his press conference and it was really weird. It was really weird. कस्तो हुन्छ भने एउटा translator, he doesn't speak that much English and he stays there with the translator and then the presenter asks him how was the game, how कस्तो खालको क्वेसन सोधेको थियो भने what was the game like, you're pressing with high intensity, त्यस्तो सोधेको थियो. अनि त्यसपछि the translator translates him and then the translator says it in English so that Bielsa can say it to him. And then he says this like, how was the game? It was good. That's it. Normally, managers would give like 2 or 3 lines. Then Bielsa and the game was like this. We hope to do this. Bielsa is just like one word. That's it. There was a sentence. That's it. Next question. One sentence. That's it. So it was really interesting to see the chemistry between the media and the manager. And this was something I enjoyed watching, in that performance of Leeds, and now they play Derby. It's Lampard versus Bielsa. One generation versus the next generation. How will it be? The Championship is one of the leagues that you need to watch. Coming back to football, third topic, we get to there's an article I read on BBC how brain injury experts call for ban on heading in football. So some of you might have heard about CTE. It is chronic traumatic encephalopathy. CTE, concussion basically. And what the researchers, I think it was in some university. I found this in BBC. Let's see. Brain injury, heading, football. Yes, brain injury experts call encephalopathy. So it's a chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Let's call it, my pronunciation wrong pani hun sakcha hai. So this was it's Dr. Bennett Omalu. And this research was conducted by, let's see, heading a football should be restricted in the professional game and banned for those under the age of 18, according to one of the world's leading experts on brain injuries. Dr. Bennett Omalu discovered the brain disease chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE. This condition has long-term effects and is caused by repeated head trauma. Omalu, an inquest. There was I think it's in the next wala. So there's a guy, former West Brom striker and England striker called Jeff Astle. He died because of brain trauma, because of heading too many footballs. And this was a guy playing in the 60s or 70s, I think, very early days. And they used to play with leather balls, and heading a leather ball was very hard. It was tough. So the ball जुन force मा आउँछ र head गर्नुपर्छ, the force, I think it move. जब पनि तपाईहरु टाउको ठोकिन्छ, I think your brain gets moved, हुन्छ नि, boom, हल्लिन्छ के. अनि हल्लेपछि there are some cells that get destroyed, something like that, and it causes trauma. And this guy died because of heading too much football, हुन्छ नि. And Alan Shearer पनि थियो. He also had suffering from dementia because he's headed too much football, because he used to head a football a lot, हुन्छ नि. And he's also suffering from dementia. And there is a documentary about it you can watch, and it's about him. So I haven't watched that documentary, but I am going to. And it's a really interesting issue, because what they're saying is footballers, players playing under 18 मा जो खेल्छ, they should not be heading the ball because of the long-term effects in football, हुन्छ नि. Long-term effect, he might develop concussions, trauma later on, हुन्छ नि. Especially this happens in American sports मा धेरै हुन्छ. American football मा हुन्छ, professional wrestling मा पनि हुन्छ, MMA मा पनि there are some cases of CTE, हुन्छ नि. American football मा I think there are more cases because of the collusions and the पुरै हुन्छ नि, दुईजना ठोकिन्छ हैन, पुरै tackling each other, हुन्छ नि, using their heads, हुन्छ नि. The helmet ठोकिने बित्तिकै how much does the brain lose its cells, हुन्छ नि. The professional wrestling मा हुन्छ, the moves that are connected to your head. MMA, boxing मा पनि हुन्छ, kickboxing I think, especially boxing and kickboxing, I think a lot of concussions and CTE. Joe Frazier हो कि George Foreman लाई भएको हो है एउटा. So this is a really serious issue. एउटा issue हो जुन हेर्नु पर्छ, हुन्छ नि. Saying that teenagers cannot head the ball is it's a weird accusation. It's an accusation भन्दा पनि एउटा weird statement हो, because football you head the ball चाहिँ गोल किक हान्दा फेरि के गर्ने, हेड नगरिकन यतिकै छोडिदिनु पनि हुँदैन हैन. But there's also that side that you should look out for, that is you might get concussed in the future. So I think this needs to be researched a lot. And if you restrict under 18 heading, कसरी game, if you don't head the ball when you're under 18, it's sort of like the foundation of playing football. So you learn to pass, you learn to use your feet, you learn to head the ball. And then what this guy is saying is professionals should head the ball less often. So how do you do that? That's a really serious question. But under 18 it should be looked into. And I think if you don't head the ball later on, it will be hard for you to head. Is that so this is another issue. And lots of players have actually suffered concussions. And in 1966 England's World Cup squad, there's a lot of players including Nobby Stiles, Martin Peters, Ray Wilson that have been diagnosed with dementia. So dementia is another disease, sort of like a brain disease that is caused, let's see what it says there. It's not a disease actually, it's a term that describes symptoms associated with decline in memory and thinking skills. So I think it's you forget. Alzheimer's disease account for 60 to 80% of the cases. So you basically forget, thinking ability is down, so that causes dementia. You forget what happened, you forget what you did yesterday, you forget your relatives. The next up is similar to that. It's related with heart. Footballer heart death risk is underestimated. So footballers who die of heart diseases are underestimated, and who suffer from heart disease are underestimated. This is another interesting article that traces that footballers have died due to heart issues, because football is a very intense sport. It's a very intense sport, isn't it? And 90 minutes you give it your all, and the body is only able to take until so much. Let's look at this. Footballer heart death risk. There's another interesting article that I found. Heart death risk is underestimated. The cardiac arrest that people have, and the cardiac problems, heart problems resulting from high intensity involved in the game. This is the study in the New England Journal of Medicine, comes from 2 decades of data on 11,168 youth players in the UK. So this is done over 2 decades, 20 years, I think. Decade 20 years, I think it's 10 years. It's 10 years. 10 years. 20 years they collected data from 11,168 youth players. Now they're talking about youth players. Doctors said there was a duty to protect players. Diseases that affect the heart muscle or cardiomyopathies are silent killers. This first symptom can be heart suddenly stopping. This is why clubs have a screening program for academy players at age 16. So this screening program is really important in this, because clubs now do see what goes on. How does the person adjust? Is his heart good enough? The medical or when the player signs, player kins is a club like. Let me drink water. So coming back to the screening program, when players do medical, they go through a screening program that checks their heartbeat and the cardiac situation check, so the cardiac status, and are they fit enough to play, will they have further problems. So that's why they do it. Continuing with the article, that dangers are higher in elite athletes because taxing the heart can trigger their underlying disease. Adrenaline, changes in electrolytes, and dehydration all increase the risk of triggering a cardiac arrest. But nobody was certain how common deaths from a cardiac arrest were. Estimates had put the figure at less than 2 in every 100,000 players. 1 lakh, 2 in every 1 lakh players. But this analysis says the figure is higher, 7 in every 1 lakh players. So that increases, and there's increasing tendency in this study. This Professor Sanjay Sharma led the research at St. George's University of London. 20 years of screening, 42 academy prospects were found to be at risk. So that's an increase from the previous 2 in every 1 lakh, but 7 in every 1,000. And 20 years of 42. So 1 year they find at least 2 academy prospects. I'm saying major players that have died from heart-related disease, as Mark Vivian Foe was playing. He's a Cameroonian international. He played in the Premier League. Former Lyon player. He died playing for Cameroon at the age of 28. Former England defender Hugo Iogu. It's very hard to pronounce this name. I'm sorry for the past. I don't mean disrespect, but Hugo Iogu. He died last year. He was a former Middlesbrough player, defender, and he was this coach at Tottenham Hotspurs and died at the age of 44 due to heart-related problems. We also saw scares to Fabrice Muhammad, the most famous one. In a game he stopped. He went down. He had a heart attack, and then he recovered. Fortunately, he recovered. I'm saying good for him. So there is a link between heart disease and football, and it's because of the pressure on the heart. Maybe it's the lifestyle, maybe the footballing lifestyle, of how you play the game and later you enjoy it. You don't give rest to the heart, sort of like that. So it's sort of related to like it. Dr. Zaf Iqbal, he's a doctor at Crystal Palace, though Chosma only doctor, sir. Used to be a former doctor of Liverpool. Told the BBC, in every Premier League game, there always has to be a doctor on each bench, 2 paramedics and a mandatory equipment. Compared with 10 years ago, I think players are better protected compared to last 10 years ago. As well as the screening programs, he said the club have defibrillators which drive an electric shot to the heart. On the training ground, and coaching staff had been trained to use them. That the thing that will save these guys is the defibrillator. So this is important. Technology has taken us to a new level. So this is another issue that is really interesting because of the links between diseases and health problems with football. We don't necessarily see when a player is heading the ball, which a lot of players head the ball, especially central defenders. They head the ball a lot. I'm saying, are their brains in trouble? I'm saying, the likes of Carragher with punditry, we're seeing John Terry is still playing. I'm saying, these defenders, I'm saying, are they suffering from concussion? It's a serious topic that needs to be had. But banning heading, is it necessary in football? Heading is as much as good as when you score from 20 yards, maybe. A good header of the ball. Drogba's header goal in the Champions League final was as good as a curler from 20 yards. It's as good. It's very good to watch. This is a topic that needs to be researched on, along with the heart disease, because these are very it's a sensitive topic. It's a topic that needs to be there so that people might be aware. Now we come to the upcoming season of the Premier League. The upcoming, there are several pronunciation problems. English my first language, and I try to speak it well. I try to speak it. I try to give it respect, so that the tongue doesn't do what the mind does. The body is slow to what the mind wants to do. So Premier League starting in 45 minutes according today. By the time you would be listening, it will be all over. Manchester United are playing Leicester City, and it's a very interesting game because United didn't get their transfer targets. They have a lot of doubts about who will play. Bailly is half fit, I think. Well, Valencia is not playing, I think. Lukaku is doubtful. All these players, Jesse Lingard just come back from the World Cup, doubtful, sir. Leicester, on the other hand, they sold Riyad Mahrez, Bechuku, sir. They have bought in decent players such as James Maddison from Norwich and Ghezal from Lyon. They say he's similar to Mahrez. They bought 2 defenders on deadline day. In the last day, they bought 2 defenders. One from Turkey, who's a very hot prospect, and the other one from Croatia. So it's interesting to watch. And Jamie Vardy just signed a 4-year contract, so he's gonna stay with Leicester City, and it's gonna be an interesting game. How United will play. It's a new season because it's a third season syndrome for Mourinho. Who knows how they will play? How will the fans be happy? If you win your first game, the fans will always be happy. It's that first game that counts. Then on Leicester's side, how will they be able to cope up? How will they be able to cope up with missing Mahrez? Will Maddison or Ghezal perform as well? Or Demari Gray will he step up? He's a boy with a lot of talent. Indeed, he's there. He's made himself a figure. After the loss of Kante, he's acting as that role. So it's going to be interesting. Puel plays a very good style of football. Leicester play really well. Very interesting watch. It's how United play. Fred Hilzegi, this is their main signing this season. Will he play? So I hope that United will win, but I hope it's a scoring win. I think it's like a 2-1. I'll go for a 2-1 win for United. Let's see what happens. Then we come. The main game of this week is Arsenal versus Manchester City. That's the main game. Arsenal under new management. Unai Emery Arsenal ma. After Arsene Wenger finally left after a long time, 22 years or something, and then Manchester City beat Chelsea in the Community Shield 2-0. It's very sad. It's very sad that day. City dominated Chelsea. They dominated us. But coming back to City, they are a force. They have signed Mahrez. They've got their players fit. Company's fit. Benjamin Mendy is fit. So let's see how they play. Airplane alert. The sound is off an airplane. This also gives me time to have a water break. Rhyming जस्तो भयो त्यहाँ 12:01 भएको छ 12 बजेको छ. It's Saturday. Hopefully you guys will like and subscribe my podcast. I'm trying to do a sports podcast trying to get that sporting feel in Nepal. Sport. I'll talk about more topics in the future. But coming back to Manchester City, रमाइलो हुन्छ हेर्नलाई हुन्छ नि कस्तो खेल्छ. Their style of football is really interesting. Although I hate them, but football खेल्न चाहिँ रमाइलो हुन्छ कि they just outplay you हुन्छ नि. Somehow they find a way. They play that FIFA style of football really हुन्छ. And it's going to be interesting. I have a problem with City is because the depth of that forward line हुन्छ नि. Aguero and Jesus are there. What happens if Aguero gets injured and Jesus gets injured? You never know what might happen. Even if Aguero gets injured, Jesus has to play every game. Will City play him every game, or will they use Sterling at that position? Will they have a proper centre forward? Because credit is given to Guardiola for playing a false nine, but will it work? There are questions like this that I have for Guardiola. There's a major question. I hope they don't win the Premier League. I hope a new team wins the Premier League. It's going to be hard for Chelsea to win the Premier League, but I hope they don't win the Premier League. But they have a good team. Respect to them for what they've done, what Guardiola has done to City. And he's transformed the place. The way the philosophy of Manchester City has changed. This game is important. How will Arsenal play? That's the thing. So will they sit defensively? They have never done that. This is Arsenal. The Arsenal way of playing is put the ball down on the ground and play carpet football. So they play really good when they're on form. Signings are there for Arsenal. Bernd Leno. I don't know if he's gonna start. Czech might probably start. Lucas Torreira, Socrates, Pastapopoulos, defenders, Lichtsteiner. They have a fit Aubameyang. They have Lacazette, Lucas Torreira. I mentioned him. These are a couple of players that they've signed, and they look really good. Ramsey stayed with them. It's gonna be that's the game to watch, Sunny. I always hope games are highly धेरै गोल भएको गेम मलाई मन पर्छ के 3-3 भएको 2-2 is also good 4-4 4-3 4-2 त्यस्तो गेम रमाइलो हुन्छ. I hope that games lives up to its attacking capabilities, because the attacking capabilities in both teams is off the charts. It's very, very high. You have very, very high level of players in both teams. That's an interesting game to watch. Coming to Chelsea play Huddersfield, I think. We play Huddersfield away, and I hope Chelsea win. Chelsea will win because Huddersfield, they've strengthened few players. So they bought Ramadan Sobi, they bought a defender, they lost Thomas Ince. Huddersfield survived last season barely with a script. They survived because they drew at Chelsea. So Chelsea fans will not forget that day against Huddersfield at Stamford Bridge. They drew 1-1. So I think we have to win this game. It's interesting how Chelsea will play because there's a lot of players at Chelsea. There are 9 midfielders, center midfielders in that Chelsea team. And we know Sarri likes to play a 4-3-3. So that who is going to play the 3? Will Kante play? If Kante play, where will Jorginho play? Loftus-Cheek is there. How will Fabregas play a lot? Ross Barkley is there. If I was Sarri, I would just throw my balls out, throw my options out, and I will play. Chelsea fans will not like me. I will play Jorginho, I'll play Loftus-Cheek, and I'll play Barkley. And that's how I will play. how to play attacking football. The young lion, we need fresh blood. Loftus-Cheek is very good. He did really good at City. He can control the ball. He can run with the ball. He can create chances. Barkley, on the other hand, is a potential. Is really really good potentially, but nah, he doesn't have the year. He's not 22 anymore. He's not 21 anymore. 25. So he needs to show that Jorginho will be able to keep it tight. But the question, if Chelsea play that defensively, can Jorginho होइन जे पनि भनौँ, क्यान ही ह्यान्डल इट, त्यो छ कि कुरा, त्यो होइन. Is he athletic like Kante? Can he run around? Can he tackle? Can he win the ball? That's the thing. There are other players. It's a dilemma for Sarri. Defenders पनि back four-मा त्यो center backs को खेल्नु. David Luiz is prone to making errors. Will he play Christensen? Is he matured enough? Rudiger always is also rash. को खेलाउने के? Gary Cahill, does he have the pace anymore? A lot of questions for Chelsea, but I hope we show the critics what we're all about. Liverpool play West Ham. This was also an interesting game. West Ham have signed a lot of players. West Ham have enjoyed a lot in the transfer window. There are, I think, Wolves, Khotrai, Everton, and West Ham in the transfer window. Bobal. Liverpool, I think these three teams have performed above expectations in the transfer window. Andrei Yarmolenko, Felipe Anderson, they got Lucas Perez, Jack Wilshere, Lucas Fabianski. They even signed a £22 million that Isra Diop, and Manuel Pellegrini is their manager, so they would probably be playing attacking football. They have Arnautovic, Chicharito, Mark Noble, Masuaku, Aaron Cresswell. And so this is a very good West Ham team. On paper, it's very good. Let's see how they play. Liverpool, on the other hand, have shown they can play in preseason. On good on paper, on good on the field, I think, as well. Shaqiri, Fabinho, Naby Keita, Alisson. So that those signings show that they are intended to win the league. They want to win the league after a lot. The last time Liverpool won the league, we know, 1989, I think it was. A long time. So there is a real feel in Liverpool that they will win the league, and this game is a test for both teams to see how their intent is. Will West Ham finally, will they play well, the attacking style of football? Will it work, or will Liverpool just go past them? Other games to watch: Fulham. I think they will be playing Everton. Fulham have a really good team. They are another team that did really well in the transfer window. Their owner, I think, Salim Khan, he owns Wembley, so you can see. And Fulham playing in Craven Cottage, beautiful ground. Alexander Mitrovic, Andre Schürrle. They signed Jean Seri from Nice, who was targeted by Barcelona, really good midfielder. They got Luciano Vieto. They got that fullback from Bristol City, another good one. And they signed a couple of players yesterday, a lot of players actually. And they have a really good player, Tom Kearney's there. They also signed that defender, Alfie Mawson, Sergio Rico. So it's a good team, and they have a good manager in, I think, it's Jovanovic, Slavitsko Jovanovic. Okay, that's the case. It's very hard to pronounce his name, but he was a former manager, I think, at Watford. He plays a really attractive brand of football. So Fulham, I really like Alexander Mitrovic. Ryan Sessegnon, the hot prospect. Watch out for this guy, Ryan Sessegnon. He's just 18. He made his debut at 15, I think. He was a regular at 16. Last season he got the full season, and then now he's turning out to be the next hot left-footed player in England, Ryan Sessegnon. Fulham play Everton, another team that really won me in the transfer window. Richarlison, 50 million. They signed him for 35. The price is riding to 50. Richarlison ko लागि, who had a very good first half of the season, but second half of the season Malikati caught, and Everton and Watford got 50 million for that guy. Amazing. Khatra business ho yo. Transfer window चाहिँ रमाइलो हुन्छ कि हेर्नु यस्तो डिलहरू भएकोमा. Then there is Richarlison, Bernard, Yeremina. They got Kurt Zuma on loan, Andre Gomes. They have Cenk Tosun, Theo Walcott, Tom Davis, Phil Jagielka. Jagielka's old, but he's got experience. Michael Keane, Jordan Pickford. So Premier League's back, ladies and gentlemen. With this, I will end the podcast. Please like, share, and subscribe. Our podcast will like. We will be updating our content. Our pages, everything will be updated. We'll be doing a lot of stuff in the future. But in the meantime, please support us by liking, subscribing, and sharing. Blah, blah, blah.